Are you ready for phenomenal thought leadership from the most well-respected leaders in industry? Join us for stellar conversations and sound advice from trailblazers who have a passion for excellence. Learn best practices that will catapult the culture of your company into a new level of greatness. Welcome to Great Companies, Great Leaders. Your host is Christine Gannon. Welcome this morning to another edition of Great Companies, Great Leaders. So excited to have my good friend and colleague, Brandon Ramsey, with us this morning. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here. So a little bit about Brandon. Today, Brandon is the Customer Engagement Manager for Nerdery, a digital consultancy focused on creating digital tools for the enterprise. He graduated from Kent State University in Ohio, close to my hometown, and making the move to Arizona, he's worked for a national nonprofit, Mosaic, managed the community programs for MidFirst Bank, held a role at Microsoft in commercial sales, as well as Insight. He serves and has served on several boards, including the City of Phoenix Business and Workforce Development, and also Homeless Youth Connection, and he's currently the president of Kent State Alumni Arizona chapter. He has a constant desire to learn and to be challenged, and he continues to explore ways to support his local community and better those around him. And I just know from my own experience, you are such a force multiplier for good in our community. I mean, you are everywhere and you are connecting people, not only just in our state. So I give you a lot of kudos for all that you do.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start out with a little bit about your journey. I shared a little bit in your bio of some of the positions that you've held in the boards, but where did it start?
So crazy journey. I know I've shared with you a little bit, but it's always great to share and kind of where I've ended up in technology, because that was not where I wanted to go initially. So starting back in Ohio playing college sports, it was a transition to Kent State where I thought I'd start my career in sports and sport marketing. And from there, I did a fantasy baseball camp for the Cleveland Indians, so go Tribe. And then went down and worked for the Memphis Redbirds. And that's where I really thought my career was going to be shifted to sports. And then I might be dating myself, but I know a lot of people out there know AOL Instant Messenger. So it was an AOL Instant Message inviting me to sunny Phoenix, Arizona. I've never been, but the invite came via November. So I was in, and so I came to visit. And this is where my career journey really kind of spiraled, and I accepted a lot of different roles, but it was the trial and error of trying to apply for jobs. And I remember I was on Indeed and Monster, and I was throwing out all these applications, and I just resulted back and said I was really good in sales when I was with the Redbirds. And I remember driving down Scottsdale Road, and I kind of turned on the Shay, and I saw the Scottsdale YMCA, and I just pulled in. And so I went in, I provided my resume, and I said, there's no jobs, but extensive background in sports marketing. Crazy enough, 2 days later, the sports director called me, interviewed me, and hired me on. And so I helped run the junior sons and their football program, got to meet a lot of amazing people. And it was kind of where my career took off. And as I shared with you earlier last week, is from there, I never applied to any other positions. Every position was introduced to me, and someone thought that I would be right for the role. And that's where I started really focusing on relationships. And the journey started by becoming friends with an associate director for that national nonprofit. And so I went in and I became the community relations manager for Mosaic. And this was such a humbling experience to provide support for people with disabilities, and just being able to better understand the purpose and really finding my drive and what I wanted to accomplish. But it was 4 years at Mosaic, and I love to share this. It was $40,000 a year, and it was such an incredible mission and impact. And there are still several of the workers there that I'm still close to. So I love that organization. But it also reshaped my entire approach to sales, to my community, to what I'm able to do outside of my job functions. From there, I got recruited to MidFirst Bank, and I ran their community programs, and I helped with their sports sponsorship. But I really reshaped how MidFirst Bank played a role in our community, and it was such a huge focus. And then via LinkedIn Microsoft pinged me and brought me in and initially recruited me as the community relations specialist, and then moved me into a business sales capacity. And that was my introduction to technology. And my background wasn't in technology, but I was up for the challenge. And for 6 years, so many people out there might know me from Microsoft and the work that we did here in Arizona. And then I had an opportunity to move to Insight, which wonderful company, great presence here in Arizona. I just realized that I needed a role that I was more involved in the community. And I got this message, LinkedIn as well, and it said, "Hey, I have a company called Nerdery. Love for you to check it out. It's a senior customer engagement manager. We want you to build those relationships." And like so many others, if you get a company called Nerdery, you're intrigued. Like,
right?
So do we call each other nerds? Absolutely, we call each other nerds. And I was very fortunate. The company's going through a major transition. I love their leadership. I love where they wanted to go, and I was up for the challenge. And so I'm officially a nerd. So it's been kind of a nice little turn, but the journey was just keeping my door open and being willing to accept the challenges and go out of my comfort zone and support. So that's kind of where I ended up.
It's a phenomenal story. You're super humble and an amazing leader. I wanted to pull out a couple things that great leaders possess that you talked about, taking risks. So when I think about the YMCA story, that took a whole lot of courage, which leaders need, and you took a risk, and it was a calculated risk. You weren't walking into a skydiving business. You were walking into a community organization, right? That you could contribute your skills and abilities to. You had no idea what was going to happen, right? So you took a risk. You had a whole lot of courage. The next one is communication. So leaders have to be able to communicate, and you could do that, right? You communicated what you were looking for, not only at the YMCA opportunity, but obviously throughout. Your network is the other thing you talked about. And that's so important, not only for leaders, but for all of us. A good reminder that your network is king. Really, it is who you know. And then technology. I love how you wrapped technology into all of that. I did not use AOL Messenger, but that is so amazing to me that someone reached out to you that way. Technology is phenomenal. So LinkedIn and the other pieces and parts that you talked about, how technology kind of linked it all together. And I think we'll see that, especially as we come out of this pandemic, how technology will shift the way that we work, right? A lot of people are working hybrid, or are going to work virtual. So talk a little bit about Nerdery. You said everyone loves to be called nerds at your company, which is totally fine. But tell us about your company.
Yeah, so 4 months in, it's been incredible. We have an office in Phoenix, and the best way I can describe Nerdery is a digital disruptor building technology for end users. What I love about this is my career in technology. It was with Microsoft, and they have these pre-built programs. And then I moved into professional services with Insight, but here it's really focusing on creativity and building custom technology for different industries and different organizations. And so on staff, we have developers, we have designers, we have strategists, we have insights. I mean, it's just a full end-to-end solution where we can go in and say, how do we become an addition to your team and your digital strategy, and build these custom tools that's going to impact your organization? So whether it's healthcare or manufacturing, we're really going in there and saying, here's a complex problem. Let's add some nerds to your team and let's figure this out together. And so I love the concept of taking our teams and really going in and just being an extension and changing industries and really building technology for those users and for these desired outcomes. And my mind is running. So when I was talking about accepting a challenge, wow, this has been a great learning for me, but it's just been an incredible team. So the one thing that we've been focused on was healthcare. And so I've been learning a lot about healthcare and healthcare initiatives, and then aligning our teams to it from a patient experience. And it's been an amazing learn. But Nerdery is here. We're looking to make a huge impact in our community, not just with our skills and talents, but what can we contribute to our community? Coding camps at our office, opening our office for collaborative approaches and events. So we're definitely positioning ourselves to be a strong presence here in Phoenix and in Chicago and Minnesota and nationally.
That's fantastic. Well, in Arizona, for those of you that are in Arizona, you should check out number one, the new Park West Mall, crazy amazing. And that's where your offices are. Your offices are innovative and hip and cool and super fun. So check it out. Tell the audience a little bit about who should reach out to you. What kind of a company should reach out to you?
Yeah. So when we look at kind of digital strategy, there's a couple different leaders within organizations that makes sense. And so we start working with marketing around the digital strategy. So all the way from the website as your front door to applications, all the way to the back end. So how are we capturing data and information that might help for outreach and those efforts? And the other part is we look at the IT landscape and how are we helping move IT companies to a digital transformation process, but doing it in such a way where it is in bite-sized chunks. So anyone that is in charge of innovation or marketing, even looking at some of the IT backend, because we do focus on the front all the way to infrastructure. So the whole gamut. So everyone's kind of involved. But if you're driving innovation and you're a tech champion within your organization, love to talk to you.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay, I want to pivot for a minute and talk a little bit about leadership. So I know just based on our conversations, you've had some amazing mentors and coaches and opportunities. What do you think makes a great leader?
Yeah, so when I started looking and I realized when I did some self-discovery and I figured as I looked to be a leader in my community and a leader in my workplace, I really needed to focus on myself. And so I did take a break from boards to really focus on myself so that way I can contribute. I had two incredible leaders. Let me go back. So I had some amazing managers, but when I started really thinking about leaders, there were a few that stood out, and actually two in particular. Deb Tumberland from the Microsoft store, the way that she was able to energize and inspire for me to be successful. And it really, all the things that stood out beyond just a manager telling me the rules that I needed, but to provide that empathy and just that feeling where I could come and talk to her about anything, and really drove some major success. And I just really enjoyed my time there. The other one, and I know she doesn't know this, but the City of Phoenix Business and Workforce Development Board, if you haven't attended one of those meetings, incredible leaders on that entire board, and they do it in such a different way. So I would go and just listen to these members. But at the time I was there, Audrey Bohannon, she was our chairperson, and she doesn't know this, but the way that she commanded the room, the way that she opened the door for everyone's contributions and really sparked discussion, it was incredible, and it inspired me just to kind of hear her energy and her compassion and her purpose. And when I think of a leader, I think of somebody that comes in and just energizes the entire group and can really inspire, but also make you feel comfortable sharing whatever it is. And so, Audrey, I'm giving you a shout out. Hopefully you watch this, but those were two leaders. And so when I really started thinking about what makes a great leader, number one, I think you have to genuinely care about the success of others. So this is not just in your workplace, but also in the community. So having that genuine caring nature to say, I want everyone to be around me to be successful, I think is a great leadership quality. Being self-aware and willingness to be vulnerable. So a lot of times we talk about a leader and the way where leaders have to be strong and all this, but I believe the vulnerability in being yourself and being aware of your strengths, your weaknesses, but also not being afraid to share that with other people. And I've shared my thing out on social media, but I think that's a big thing around leadership is being who you are and being vulnerable and letting people see that and kind of following you from there. Actually listen. We live in this pandemic world where the majority of our conversations as leaders or managers, it's been very transactional where, Christine, where's the project? Where are you at with this? So are we actually listening to our team beyond just what they're doing for work, but truly knowing what energizes them and what they're going through at this state of time? leaders need to really listen and truly, truly make that deliberative. Focus on positive. A lot of times we are
Mm,
quick to share what we didn't do right or feedback or positive feedback. Um, as a leader, it's really for us to create that positivity within our environment. And how are we doing that? And how do we ensure that our team is feeling that and knowing that we're together making that impact? And then the last one is just being intentional. For our interactions, and the importance is, are we intentionally interacting and supporting with our team, and what does that look like? So these are all qualities that I've taken, and I've heard leadership courses, I've taken leadership courses, and you get a beautiful certificate, but a lot of times you don't think of the application. But at the end of the day, we're people, and you have to truly love people to be a great leader in my eyes.
absolutely. No, I think all of those are phenomenal. A couple I want to bring out because I think times have changed. So when I think back to leadership 10, 15 years ago, being vulnerable wouldn't have been on that list for most people. Vulnerability wouldn't have been a trait that someone might say that makes a great leader, right? And I think that just shows how things are changing, especially as people come out of this pandemic and they talk about maybe care challenges, or they talk about mental health challenges, things that they're struggling with that are real issues that employers need to take into account. We interviewed Naomi Kramer. She's the Chief Human Resources Officer for Banner Health. She talked about being vulnerable and how for 18 months in her role, she didn't share that she had a special needs child at home. And she was struggling really to balance. She was nervous to do that. But she said once she was vulnerable and shared with her team, she just had this rally of support, right? And so it just was validation that vulnerability takes a different place at the table now as a leader. And the other thing that you said was listening. We're in this world of social media, 100 and some characters, right? In a headline, Twitter or whatever. And people are interrupting, especially on Zoom, right? And not listening 100%. So I really like that you pulled those two out. Super important. So, what advice would you give to a leader that's considering, or someone that's considering going into leadership? Out of those qualities, what do you think they should be focused on as a brand new leader?
Themselves. When we talk about going in and leading others, and I coached at Thunderbird High School, and when I was there, it was more than just teaching them the fundamentals. It was teaching them how to communicate with each other and how to be a great person outside and off the field. And I've experienced this recently, is if I'm going to give my all and lead others and really focus on the success of others, I really need to look at myself first, and make sure that I'm also following those principles. So I would say, as you're looking to step into a leadership role, and it doesn't have to be a manager title, it could be somebody at any level of the company, you have to really, really make sure that you're in a good place and focus on yourself, and then be able to lead with others.
And something you talked about last week when we were together was authenticity. Really being able to show up as your authentic self. And that goes back to really working on yourself so you feel safe enough to do that.
Absolutely. And and we obviously we've shared some great dialogue, but as you can see, that I do have tattoos, and for the longest time, I was covering them up because I didn't know if it was going to be acceptable or I was going to be judged. And I do contribute a lot to Nerdery, who embraces these changes, or embraces who you are. And to this point, it's being able to share who you are, and being proud of who you are. I think it's a great characteristic. And so I've done a lot of transformation over my time, especially these last 2 years, to be comfortable with who I am, and be involved and actually lead with authenticity.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Brandon, you are a phenomenal leader in our community and beyond. Thank you for all you do and have done for veterans, especially in our community. I know that's where we originally connected, but you continue to do great things. I'm super excited for Nerdery. They are so fortunate to have your skill set and your talent and your abilities. And we'll put in the content and comments, we'll put how people can reach out to you. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Christine. It was fun. Thank you.
Brightworks Consulting hosts this podcast and YouTube channel to spotlight the leadership around the world that is changing lives. Brightworks offers a myriad of consulting services in the public and private sector, to include diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions for any size company. You can find us at www.brightworksconsulting.com. We're honored to have Best Companies AZ as a presenting sponsor for this podcast. Best Companies AZ is your #1 source for regional employer branding. You can find them at www.bestcompaniesaz.com.